So, good morning. So, in our last class, we studied the Java scripting, HTML forms, and CSS. So, CSS is a style sheet which formats the data and which will decide how the HTML elements is going to be displayed on a browser. So, another style sheet mechanism is XSL. So this is used for only XML files. So XML file is a extensible markup language file where each data is marked with a opening tag and closing tag. So in XSL, it has three parts: XSLT, so that is the XSL transformation language. So this XSLT can transform one document into another. Then XPath is the XML path language. So just like the URL path, for each element in a XML, there will be a XPath. So XPath is nothing but the path from the root element of the XML. So if we represent the XML file as a tree structure, so it is also called as a DOM, document object model. So when a tree is represented out of a XML file, then the path from that root to the required element, it is called as a X path. Then XSL formatting objects, so formats the output of a XSL transformation. So an XML file first goes through a transformation language and then it goes through the formatting. So here in our syllabus we don't have the uh, examples or code for this XSL. So unlike a HTML file, so XSL will provide the styles for XML files. So and finally to be displayed on a browser, there should be some transformation and that is done by XSLT. So next let us move on to the middle tier. So far we have discussed the presentation tier. So in middle tier, um, we'll be studying its functionality. So a middle tier is the one that sits between the user and the database or the backend. So it encodes the business logic. It interacts with the database on one side. On the other side, it accepts the input from the presentation layer or the user, and also it generates the output for the presentation layer. So it takes the input from the presentation layer, processes it, then interacts with the DBMS, then the result from the DBMS again it processes and generates the output for the presentation layer. So here we will be studying the CGI, common gateway interfaces. So it is a protocol for passing the arguments to the programs running at the middle tier. Then application servers, so it's a runtime environment at the middle tier. Then in Java programming, servlets. Servlet is a middle tier Java program, and Java server pages. So, so in place of HTML, we will be embedding the some Java code in between. So such pages are called as Java server pages. And how to maintain a state in the middle tier. So, so in state maintenance, we will be studying the cookies. common gateway interface. Um, so its main objective is to transmit the arguments from HTML forms to the application program that is running at the middle tier. So in yesterday's class, we saw a HTML form where we will enter our data. For example, consider the login page where we will be entering the user ID and the password. So once the user ID and password is entered, and then we will be clicking on the login button. When a button that is clicked, then automatically what happens? The arguments from the HTML form is taken. So in this example, the username and the password is taken from the HTML form, and that those two details will be passed on to the program that is running at the middle tier. Then the program that is at the middle tier will process the username and password by interacting with the database. So in the database, it will check whether both the username and password is matching, if at all the particular username is present. So if the user is present and the password is correct, so it will extract the data that is to be displayed to the user from the database. Then the data that is extracted from the database will be converted into a web page and then passed on to the presentation layer to be displayed on the browser. So if password and username doesn't match, then appropriate messages will be displayed at the presentation layers. So all these interactions can be done in the CGI gateway interfaces. So the only disadvantage of using CGI is the application program is invoked in a new process at every invocation, which means each call from the presentation layer will create a new process. So at one time, so we may exceed the number of process limit that is provided by the servers. So in order to overcome this, fast CGI, another version can be used. There is no resource sharing between the application program, so like DBMS connections. So connections cannot be shared in CGI gateway. So in order to overcome this, so application servers can be used. So in application servers, the connections can be reused. So let us look at an example of a HTML form. So this is the form. So action is findbooks.cgi, which means when we click the button, the details will be sent to this particular program. So it is a post method. So post method means all the informations will be encoded and sent, and it will not appear in the URL. If you use get method, then the details will appear in the URL, otherwise it will not appear. And it has three text boxes, that is the text box containing author name and input type. These are the buttons. So input type, submit and reset. So only author name is there and two buttons. So there are several ways in which we can declare the buttons. Okay, so text means text box, submit and reset are the buttons, and their label will be send it, and for reset the label is clear form. So this is the HTML form. So again, it is a fragment of a code. So in order to complete a HTML file, we must include various tags like HTML body tag, header tag, and when the submit button is clicked, so the control will get transferred to findbooks.cgi. And the findbook.cgi, there is a Perl code written. So Perl is again another language for this. So the first statement is use CGI. It is just like importing the libraries. Just how we use the header files in C programming, include hash include, or in Java with import statement. So just like that, use CGI. Then a new CGI object is declared using new CGI data in. And for this data in, the header is extracted from the request, from this post method. From the post method, the header is initialized. Then here we need to extract the author name. So in order to get this author name from the data in, we'll be extracting a parameter that is author name. So here this author name is a parameter that came from this author name. So that's why the name attribute of a text box here and the parameter that we use over here, they should be matching. So here if you have used any other name, the same should be used over here. Then only it will extract the author name. So the author name is extracted. Then we can print some statement, that is print. So here another HTML page, this is HTML tag title argument passing test. So close the title tag. And then another statement we can write, author name is dollar author name. So dollar author name means this one. So here for all variables in Perl programming or PHP programming, the variables are presided with this particular dollar symbol. So now what happens in a, when this submit button is clicked, a new page will appear. So in that new page, the title of the web page will be argument passing test, and only one sentence will be there in the output, that is author name is whatever we have entered in this particular text box. So exit will terminate the Perl code. So this is an example of CGI programming where we can extract the data that is transferred or passed from the HTML page. So in this example, we have not interacted with the database. So, so in order to overcome few disadvantages of CGI programming, so application servers are used. So the application servers bring a lot of advantages such as there will be a pool of threads, which means a process can be extended or spawned across several threads so that multiple connections can be done to the database server or application server at the same time. So it application servers manage the connections better. So it enables the access to heterogeneous data sources, which means we can connect to multiple databases. So and it provides a mechanism to manage the sessions. So session is nothing but the duration for which the connection will be valid. So just like how we have in the logins for some of the websites, that if you log in at a particular time, then you will automatically logged out after maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So this happens in the banking websites. So for a net banking, if you log in after 10 minutes or 15 minutes, automatically your session will get expired and you have to re-log in. So those kinds of session management can be done if we are using the application server. So these are the some of the drawbacks of CGI programming, which can be overcome by using the application servers. So an application server will be like this. So a web browser will send a HTTP request to a web server. So we'll be having a web server. A web server in turn will interact with the application server. So again, a web server will handle the request from the web browsers, whereas the application server will perform the application related activities. And application server will have a pool of servlets, just like threads. So each servlet will perform a particular action. Then the application server will interact with the Dbms. So many databases can be used, which means the heterogeneous sources. So in order to interact with the database, the applications will make use of JDBC and ODBC. So JDBC stands for Java Database Connectivity and ODBC for Open Database Connectivity. So Other technologies, we can have a C++ application. I mean, application server can interact with Java Beans and C++ application. So this is the structure of a process on a application server. So servlets, Java servlets, it runs a Java code on a middle tier. So anyway, the Java is platform independent in Java servlets. So we can use the complete packages of all Java APIs, including the database connectivity. So it is just like a Java program only. So you can see an example over here. So a servlet example, import java.io.star. So it will import the IO packages. Then in order to declare a servlet, we must include these two packages. That is import java.servlet.star. That is a servlet package, and import java.servlet.http. So these two packages should be compulsorily imported. So otherwise, whatever code we have written, that will not become a part of a servlet. And then public class servlet template. So this is the name of the servlet, and all the servlets will extend from the base class, that is HTTP servlet. So HTTP servlet is the base class for all the servlets. So we must extend from this particular HTTP servlets. So when we extend from this particular class, so then all the APIs, methods, whatever is required to define a servlet will be already present in this particular class, and we can directly utilize them. So one method is um, public void do get. So if we had sent a get request, then it will be forwarded to do get method. So if it is a post request from a HTML, then it will be transmitted to do post. So just like do get, we can have do post for post request. So if it is a get, then it will come for do get, and it takes a parameter that is a request object and response object. So the request object is contains the data that is passed from the HTML file, and the response is the one that is constructed in this method and returned back. So in the data type for that particular request is HTTP servlet request. Again, this is a class which is already defined in HTTP servlet. So HTTP servlet request, HTTP servlet response. So do get method takes two parameters, request and response, and it is capable of throwing some of the exceptions. So we must include them while defining the function. Throws servlet exception and IO exception. So these are the exceptions that are possible when we are invoking a servlet. Then in order to write the output, we must have a object that is print writer. So again, print writer is a class that is defined in order to write data into a response. So what we'll do is printer print writer object is out is equal to response dot get writer. So response dot get writer is nothing but we are getting a handle for the response object. So which means whatever we write using the print ln statement, that will become the part of the response object. So response is over here. So this is the parameter. On that response object, we will get the handle using get writer. So just like how we open the file using the handles, so that will give us. Then on this out, we can write the statement using out.println hello world. So in these servlets, the output, whatever the print statements which we include, they will not be printed on a console. So instead, they will be printed on a browser. So that's why before using the println statement, we must get the print writers on the response object. So this is a simple servlet. So that gets the get request and just prints the hello world message. So there is a life cycle for servlets, and the life of a servlet is also limited and revolves around certain activities. So a servlet is a pool that is present on a application server. So web server forward the request to the servlet container, and then the container creates a servlet instance by calling the init method. And when an init method is called, then a new servlet is instance is created. So just like how we create instance of a object of a particular class, so in the same way, new servlet is initialized and it is designated to perform the activities based on the request. So once the servlet needs to be destroyed, um, or the deallocation, destroy method is called. And the container also calls the service method. Then in turn, the service method will call the do get method or do post for HTTP request. So usually we don't override the service method, but we will just override the do get and do post methods. So if we look at the sequence of events that will lead to execution of a servlet is, first from a web page we will make a request to web server, then web server will forward the request to servlet container. The container will now call the init method. Init method will create an instance of a servlet. Then after creation of the instance, we have to start the servlet. For that purpose, we will be calling the service method. So these calls will happen automatically. And there will be a built-in do get or do post method that is provided in the servlet libraries. If user wants, we can override them. So that is normally what we do, because we want our own logic to be put in do get method or do post. So this is another example of a servlet. So servlet starts with this particular name. So the name of the servlet is read username. So it is extending the HTTP servlet. So all servlets will extend from HTTP servlet for processing HTTP request and response. Then this is a do get method. So that is a get method having request and response objects. It is capable of throwing servlet expression and IO exception. So generally from a name till here, it is common for all. Then what we do, we have to declare the content type. So here the response content type is written. Whether the response is a plain text or it is a HTML, if we are returning a HTML objects itself, then we have to set the content type to text bar HTML over here. So this indicates that the response object that is returned from this particular servlet, it is going to be a HTML file. Then similar to the previous example, we have to take a print writer. So using response.getWriter, and on this out object, so we can print whatever we want over here. So in this particular example, an entire HTML code has been written. So HTML body, then UL stands for ordered unordered list, so which means a bullet. So a bullet in HTML just like this, so it is a unordered list. Li means list element tag. Request.get parameter user ID, so user ID will be printed in the response. For example, if it is a user ID is a USN, so we'll get 4JN. So plus this concatenation. So request.get parameter of user ID, which means user ID will be placed over here inside the li tag. Then new line another li, so which means another bullet, password. So whatever password that is entered will be entered over here. And this entire thing is constructed as a web page because it is a HTML. And this HTML page will be transferred as a response. So in this particular example, this page will be written. And in order to format this data, HTML tags like UL, LI will be are being getting used. Then we can override a post method like this. This is just an example. Do post. If a post method is sent in this particular example, again the data parameters, the exceptions that are thrown is same for do post and do get. So what is being done here inside is, so inside a post method, again we are calling a get method itself. If we are not processing anything, again the data processing is same in a do get and do post will be same, but the only thing is the encoding that happens when data is being transferred from a web page to a servlet, so that is different. So we can either process the data here itself, or if we had already written a get method, so we can just forward it to a get method using this function call, that is do get request and response. So the objects which are received over here, the same will be can be transferred. In this post method also we will get a web page similar to this one. So this is about a simple Java servlets. So in any of these functions, that is do method, we can interact with the database. So using JDBC connections. Next concept is the Java server pages. So servlets, they generate the HTML by writing it into the print writer object. So here what happens, the application logic is written first in servlets, and then the web page is created as a second part. Whereas in Java server pages, so Java server pages, it is written in HTML, and then a servlet like code is embedded in the HTML. So in between a HTML page, the servlet codes are added. So that forms a Java server pages, and these Java server pages will have an extension that is .jsp. So, or we can also call in JSP, web page is the first and the code is the second. So these Java server pages, they are usually compiled into a servlet. So which means that is a transformation that takes place. A simple Java server page will look like this. So HTML tag, header tag, title, welcome to B&N, title, close the title tag and header tag. So this title is the one that appears on top of the browser tab. Okay. Then in the body tag, we are writing the H1 tag. So that is welcome back. And then we are embedding the Java. So you can observe over here. So this thing, this entire part which is marked is the Java part in the HTML page. So wherever we want to use the Java code, so it will be specified using this particular symbol, that is the brackets, angular brackets followed by percentage. So if any Java code has to be injected into the HTML page, so this will be utilized. So when a angular bracket with percentage is encountered, so it indicates it is the Java part. So inside this, we can write any Java code. So we can declare a string like this: string name is equal to new user. If request dot get parameter of username is not equal to null, then see here we can directly use the request and response objects over here. So no need to specify parameters or function calls, anything. So they are inbuilt, so they can be used. So if request dot get parameter of username, so if it is not null, name is equal to request dot get parameter username. So which means whatever is the name that is entered in the username box, so that will be taken and it is assigned to a variable called as name. Then you are logged as a user. Again, the Java code is injected, the name will be printed over here. So in order to print a variable, so we have to use this particular syntax: is equal to is preceded. So all the expressions so will be preceded with is equal to. So is equal to name. So now close the paragraph tag. Okay, this is not required, paragraph tag. Then close the body tag and HTML tag. So now when this particular page is opened, so or when a page, this particular page is called, right? So username has to be passed, so because it is present in the request. So it will just print here this particular message. So whatever is there, so you are logged in as will come over here. You are logged on as user and the name will be printed. And before that, welcome back will be there, because that is a first string that is being printed. So first statement is welcome back. Second statement is you are logged in as user. It will print the name. So this welcome to BN, that is a title. So that title on any browser will be displayed over here. Okay. So welcome to BN. So that will be written over here. So again, this has to be executed on a Java framework. So next concept we have is a maintaining of state. So as we have already discussed previously, HTTP is a stateless protocol. So which means it doesn't remember anything. So what data you transmitted in the previous request, so that is not stored anywhere in the HTTP. So that's why in some of the website, when you click on a reload button, so it will ask you to continue. So which means the browser will be storing some part of the data in its cache memory, and it asks you for a confirmation to send it once again by pressing the continue button. So that is one way of maintaining a state. So otherwise HTTP is a stateless. So the advantage of maintaining a state is um easy to use. So it will be great for static information applications. So and it doesn't require extra memory spaces. So the disadvantages in this HTTP is no record of previous request, means whatever you have stored will not be available. So if it is a shopping application, so whatever that is present in the cart will not be there. So if we navigate from one page to another page, the information that we or the data processing or actions we performed on a previous page will be lost. So that is a disadvantage of yeah, having HTTP. User logins cannot be stored, so dynamic content cannot be loaded, and security is more difficult to implement. So if we are using any stateless information, so these are the advantages and disadvantages of using a HTTP, which doesn't maintain the state. So application state, there are again server side state. So server side state, if you want to store the server side information at a server side, it is stored in the database. So information is stored in the database or in the applications layers local memory. So if you want to maintain a state at a server side, then it is stored in either database or in the local memory of the server. So just like I told, the sessions, whenever a user logins, his sessions begins. So that information is stored in the server. And a client side information is stored in a computer memory as a part of a cookie. So client side storage or in the browser side, to be precise, the information is stored on a client's computer in a form of a cookie. So cookies are stored in the client machine, whereas serve or sessions are stored in the server side. And there will be some hidden states, so which is nothing but the information is hidden within dynamically created web page. So sometimes what happens, some information, it is needed for processing, but the user need not know it. So those kind of informations are hidden within the web page itself. So server side state can be maintained like this. So there are many of server side states. So that include the time when the user logins, the browser that a client is using, the version of a browser, the IP address of a client. So all those things can be accessed at the server side. If you are visiting any website, so automatically that particular website can get your public IP address, the browser, its version you are using, all those things can be accessible. Even the cookies that are stored in your browsers can be accessed by a server side. So server side state can be maintained by storing the information in a database. So if you store the information in the database, then data will be persistent. So which means it is stored, maybe stored forever. So the login information, at what time you logged in to your system and your IP address, all those things can be stored in a database. And in order to store the data in the database, so it requires the access and a query to either retrieve or update the information. So a server side state can use the application layer's local memory also. So can map the user's IP address to some state, and based on this, so the information can be, volatile. So if it is stored in the local memory, and it can take a lot of servers memory also. So if we are storing maybe 5 million IP address, then it then 20 MB of memory is wasted on the local memory. So again, in the server side, a state can be maintained either in a database or in the local memory of a application layer. So client side state should use the server side state maintenance for information that needs to be persistent. So persistence means we want the information to be present forever. If we close the connection and open it once again for the new session, also that data should be present over there. So just like how our shopping cart information. So if we add few products now to the cart and close the browser, and if you open it once again, those products should be present in the cart. So which means that information should be stored somewhere on the server side. It is stored in the server side because we can log in from any device to our shopping website. So if I added a product in the mobile and the next I will close it and open in the desktop system, then also that product should be present in the cart. So if it has to be present across the sessions, then the information should be stored in a server side. So each website is capable also of storing the click trails. So click trails means users movement on the website, so from which page you navigated to which page, so all the informations can be stored. So and it also stores the permanent choices a user makes. So literally whatever you do on a browser web page, all those things can be stored on a server. When you click a mouse, that can also be stored. So so this is about server side storage. So for client side storages, we will be using the cookies. Okay. So the concept of cookies we will discuss in our next class. So you can enter your attendance in the chat window. So in this particular module, so we are just studying each concept very briefly, because each one of these concepts it's a subject or a module on their own. But here we'll just studying just a glimpse of these concepts. So otherwise our Java server pages, servlets, cookies, they in itself are a larger concepts. So you may study these concepts briefly in maybe advanced J2EE. So advanced Java and J2EE, there is one elective. So maybe in your sixth semester where you will study again these concepts. So and a module is dedicated for these particular topics.